Great, welcome to the first video on my channel. Thank you all so much for stopping by. And today we're going to be talking about Pokemon Showdown. If you guys do not know, Pokemon Showdown is a Pokemon simulator in which it removes the hassle of having to EV train and breed for egg moves and change your Terra type in the mainline games. And you can simply just build a Pokemon in seconds by sliding your EVs. You can change your IVs. You can type whatever moves you want as long as they're compatible with like the Pokemon. You can select whatever item you need to, change the ability to whatever you need it, change level to. Very convenient tool for people to either build for VGC teams or people to just have fun playing solo Showdown. It's a very, very good game. I do recommend playing it. It's my favorite game that I've ever picked up. But I'm not here to plug Pokemon Showdown. I'm here to talk about weather. Weather is a playstyle in Pokemon in which you have a weather setter, whether it being like a Drizzle Pelipper, Drought Torkoal, and you set up one of the or any of like the other weather setters, and you set up one of four weathers, either being sun, rain, sand, or snow. And each weather has a completely different playstyle. And I'm here to talk about kind of how you should team build each weather, because I've noticed as I've played Showdown more and more, a lot of newer players, they know what weather is. They know like Swift Swim mons exist. They know Chlorophyll mons exist. They know all of that, but they don't really understand how like to frankly build all the way around your weather to perfectly match how the weather is meant to be played. Now, this is just a guide. This isn't like a definitive, oh, you should do this, and if you're doing anything else, you're wrong. Obviously, I'm not going to be saying that. But this is kind of just me being like, um, this is the certain things you should keep in mind when building around a certain weather. So this is going to be a four-part series, and the first part, which is what we're doing right now, is going to be discussing Sun. Sun is, without a shadow of a doubt, my best playstyle in all of Pokemon. It is super fun. I got into the Gen 8 leaderboards with Sun. I am currently climbing to the National Dex leaderboards with Sun. It is such a fun playstyle, and I feel like a lot of people just are like, oh yeah, I just spam fire types, and I maybe like throw in a chlorophyll grass type, and then that's it. That's it. But I feel like there's a lot more like, obviously it is a very hyper offensive style, but I feel like there's a lot more nuance to it. There's a more like you have to know how to outplay certain things in order to be able to beat Sun. I'm not beat Sun, beat win with Sun. That's what I meant. Yeah. Um, Now as a quick note, I am going to be using National Dex because that is the tier I play the most. Uh, OU, the same principles apply. It's just that you're not going to have things like Z moves and Megas to abuse, but the general idea applies. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so starting off, you always need to have a weather setter for any playstyle, with any weather playstyle, right? Whether it being rain, sun, sand, or hail. I keep saying hail, it's snow now, but you know what I mean. Whether being any of those four weathers, you always want to have a weather setter, preferably one that automatically sets it up with their ability. Manual rain setters and manual sun setters do exist with like Prankster Tornadus and like Prankster Mons that get the Sunny Day and Rain Dance, all that. But they're not nearly as efficient because you can't just switch them in and then it automatically sets it up. You have to have a turn to actually set up the weather, and in that turn, the opposing Pokemon can like either set up like a Swords Dance or it could set up your Stealth Rock or whatever. And it could really lose you a lot of momentum if you have to first switch in your Mon and then set up the Rain or Sun or whatever you need to set up. So having an ability to do that makes it very, very convenient. Like it makes it a lot more momentum based. And there are two Sunsetters that exist. One is Ninetales, the other is Torkoal. Now, competitive Pokemon players like mostly agree that Torkoal is 100% the better of the two. Specifically because it has a greater defensive profile with a massive 140 defense and a respectable 70 HP. Um, Also gets access to good support moves like Stealth Rock, Rapid Spin, Lava Plume, obviously Body Press. It can even run like Earth Power. It can run Yawn. It can run Solar Beam, Toxic, Wisp. It can run literally any. Like it runs a lot of really good moves. Just a quick note: never run Shell Smash on Torkoal. It will not work out for you. It is way too slow to abuse it. On the other hand, Ninetales exists, and while it is a lot faster than Torkoal, and while Alolan Ninetales is actually the better Hail setter, which I will get into in a little bit, it looks like it has a good move pool as well. It still gets Will-O-Wisp, it gets moves like Shadow Ball, it gets moves like Toxic still. Um, it still has Lava Plume, I believe. Does it have Lava Plume? Actually, it doesn't. But it has moves like foul play. It has moves like disable. It has encore, which is a very good support move. It can do a lot of stuff for you. So you may be like, why isn't Ninetales as good? It even has reflect, which if you want reflect, then cool. But you may be like, oh, why is Ninetales not better? It's faster, and it honestly can deal more damage than Torkoal. It can, well, it can't really deal more damage than Torkoal, but it's a lot faster, and it's just because the move pool differences, and honestly, the stat distribution of Ninetales is not anywhere as good as Torkoal. There are some niche cases in which you want a faster Sunsetter, but honestly, slower Weather Setters are so much better. So a quick tip here is that the slower your Weather Setter is, that means it will set up it's more likely to set up its weather last. The way setting up weather works is that the faster mon, if like two weather setters are on the field, say you have a Pelipper and a Torkoal, uh, the Pelipper will set up the weather, the rain first, and then the Torkoal will set up the sun. It's not random. It's because Pelipper always will always outspeed a no speed investment Torkoal. It will always outspeed it. Even if you run zero speed IVs and a minus speed nature, it will always outspeed it. So, what happens is the way weather setting abilities work is that the first one to be set is the one from the mon that is faster, which is why you almost always want to have a slow weather setting mon, because they will be able, except for in the case of Alolan Ninetales, which I will get to later, but you want a slower weather setter. Because on the case of weather setter versus weather setter, the slower mon gets its weather up first, which is very big because it leads to a lot of momentum. So yeah. But anyways, Torkoal is very good, and the movesets I like running are like Body Press, Stealth Rock, Lava Plume. This is like traditional Sun setting, by the way. By the way, and then like it's between Yawn and Toxic. It's between those two. If you're in OU right now, then you run Yawn, or you can run Wisp, or even you can run like Earth Power or whatever you need. Um, but you can run like a lot of good moves on Torkoal. And then you always want to run the extending move, not Damp Rock, Heat Rock. Yeah, you always want to run the extending item for your weather. In the case of Sun, it is Heat Rock, and it is because it gives you a lot longer of a window to position your Sun Sweepers, which I will get into now. So the first thing with Sun is that you often want a Magic Bounce user. This dates back to Gen 5 when weather was permanent, and it's always been like a key thing for Sun teams is you want a Magic Bounce user, because you hazards like Stealth Rock are the absolute worst thing for Suns, because a lot of the Sun mons are like fire types, right? And you want that extra power with like either you want the extra power either with like Choice Specs or Life Orb or Scarf or whatever. You always want that like either power or speed from your Sun Sweeper. That way you either knock out everything in one hit, or you outspeed mons that have a chance of KOing you and you KO them first. But that means that you can't run heavy duty boots. And dating back before Generation 8, you didn't even have heavy duty boots, so you couldn't avoid the Stealth Rocks with them, which is why you want a Magic Bounce user. Magic Bounce is an ability that will block certain status moves and bounce them back at the user. This goes for moves like Stealth Rock and Spikes and Toxic Spikes and all of those. This means that with a Magic Bounce user, personally, I think the best one is Hatterene, because it has the most significant bulk, and it can actually deal some good damage output with its 136 special attack. But with a Magic Bounce user, you can switch it in on a mon predicting Stealth Rock from that mon, and it is going to be able to bounce back, not only prevent Stealth Rock from coming on your side, but also set up Stealth Rock on your opponent's side of the field, which can be really huge for certain damage rolls that require Stealth Rock to be up to guarantee the OHKO. Now, personally, my favorite item to run on it, your Magic Bounce user, is Eject Button. If you're running like Xatu, then you run Heavy Duty Boots, but in OU, the only real option is Hatterene and Espeon. Espeon is a far more offensive one, but Hatterene is a lot more consistent. And I like running Eject Button because, say, they don't decide to set Stealth Rocks up, but they instead decide to attack you. With correct HP investment and correct defensive investment, right, your Hatterene or your Espeon will actually be able to live the attack, unless it's like a super effective like Iron Head or a Specs Shadow Ball from Dragapult or whatever. in which case you like don't really want to risk your magic bounce user, and instead you should be fine with rocks getting up and instead immediately switch into position your sweeper. But that's a little bit complicated. But you switch in your magic bounce user on a like stealth rock mon, but say they attack instead of stealth rocking. Well, with the eject button, you will survive the hit. If you survive the hit, you can immediately switch out, as the item says, into a chosen ally. This can be a little bit hard if you're like need Hatterene to like live an attack and then bounce back, but at the same time, it is very good for positioning your Sun Sweepers, which are oftentimes pretty frail, in without them taking a hit. And so, say the worst case scenario happens, they attack, you get to position your Sun Sweeper. Best case scenario, they set up like a Stealth Rock. Now you set up Stealth Rock on their side. That's why Magic Bounce with Eject Button is such a good combination. Recommended moveset, I like running Nuzzle for speed control, because paralyzing your enemy always is pretty damn good. Healing Wish as a last resort, say you need to like, say one of your Sun Sweepers or your Torkoal is very low on HP. You Healing Wish, bam, they're back to full HP and they're cured to status. That's really good. Yeah, you sack your Hatterene as a result, but it also gives you momentum, and momentum is very important for Sun teams. Because if you're able to keep up constant momentum, eventually, no matter what the matchup is you're against, you will bowl over your opponent. That is the key with Sun teams. And then I like running Dazzling Gleam and Mystical Fire to abuse the Sun. And it's honestly a very good Pokemon. Terra types is like Steel. Is the best one. Water's also pretty dang good, but I like running Steel the best. And then I like running a lot of defense with enough special attack to like Oko certain things, right? But yeah, that's why you should use a Magic Bounce user, and if you're going to use one, I would recommend using Hatterene. So you may have noticed that Sun is a very hyper-offensive playstyle, right? It is very explosive and is very fast-paced. It's very based on momentum as well. Momentum, if you guys do not know, is basically just positioning, like correctly predicting and positioning your Mons and your like Stealth Rock and all that, specifically so your opponent is always playing on the defense instead of playing on the offense. That is like essentially the idea of momentum. It's like say like you have like a counter to one Mon that is going to switch in. Say you have like your Mon, like it's a Darmanitan, for example. Say you have a Darmanitan. It is like Choice Scarf and Sheer Force, Flare Blitz. You also have U-Turn, right? Say you have these two moves, and it is a Ferrothorn. Your opponent has a Ferrothorn and a Toxapex, right? But you have a... What's a good counter to Toxapex? I chose a bad mon. Say you have like a... what's a good mon for the... Like a Xurkitree, right? So you have a Xurkitree with Thunderbolt. Now, momentum is thinking, do I Flare Blitz on the guaranteed KO on the Ferrothorn, or do I U-turn and predict the switch to Toxapex to position my Xurkitree to make it so his favorable matchup for Darmanitan against Toxapex turns into a favorable matchup for me with Xurkitree versus Toxapex, and make him play on the back foot and have him have to react to what I'm doing instead of me having to react to what he is doing, right? Or they, whatever. No genders in Pokemon. I'm kidding. But that's the basic premise of momentum. And Sun teams are very based on momentum. It's all about positioning your correct Mon, your correct powerful attacker, or your correct pivot Mon on their Mon. It's all about like predicting, what's going to happen. And it's all about wearing down certain Mons too. The problem with momentum is that if you're not a fast and powerful Mon, chances are it's harder to get momentum. That's why stall teams are always playing on the back foot, because they don't have any fast, powerful Mons, so they always have to play on the back foot. They're always just reacting to whatever your opponent does. And I'm not saying that's not an unsuccessful playstyle. I'm saying that it's a very, like, I'm playing on my back foot at all times. And with Sun, your attackers are so frail that you cannot really afford to do that. Otherwise, all your attackers will get knocked out before you can actually do anything. And Sun is just about out-offensing your opponent's offense, which is why Chlorophyll Mons are very good, because they double speed in Sun. That is very good, because obviously speed is the most important stat in Pokemon. Being able to outspeed an opponent and knock them out before they can knock you out is so valuable, especially for a team with very frail Pokemon that will probably get knocked out by the powerful attacker that is being positioned. So you have to have a fast Mon that can do that. And that's where Chlorophyll Mons come in. Now, you may be noticing Chlorophyll has only Grass-type Mons. It's actually really good defensively synergistically for a Sun team. Now, just because Sun is a very offensive playstyle doesn't mean you don't need defensive synergy at all. You can't just spam fire types, because then you're always going to be weak to ground, rock, and water. That's not very good for you. You do want at least some defensive synergy so you can switch in your mons safely on like a, say, like if you have a fire type and they like say skull, like not skull, but like say they surf, then you can switch into grass type. Now, the two premier Sun Sweepers, in my opinion, with chlorophyll, are Venusaur and Lilligant Hisui. Now, we do not have Lilligant. Now we don't have Venusaur in Generation 9 OU, but in National Dex we do, because National Dex is the best. But these two are 100% the best Sun Sweepers. Both. Now, you look at Venusaur stats, you're like only 100 base special attack, only 80 base speed. This thing is getting. This thing doesn't really do that much damage. Same thing when you look at Lilligant. You're like, oh, it's only 105 base attack, right? That's not even that good. Like, what are you gonna do? Well, the thing is, speed literally. If a mon has a high speed and it has a decent attacking stat, like 100 will do if you have a high speed. If it has a high speed and a decent attacking stat, it is going to be very good. The way it's pushed over the edge is because both these mons have great setup moves. With Lilligant, you either have Victory Dance or Swords Dance. Victory Dance is if you want to play a bit more bulky and if you want to outspeed mons outside of Sun. And Swords Dance is if you want that immediate power in Sun. And in the case of Venusaur, you have Growth. Growth is a move that raises your attack and special attack by 1, but it raises it by +2 in the Sun, which means that you get effectively a free Nasty Plot alongside a Swords Dance. Meaning you can attack on both sides of the spectrum if you really want, though most Venusaurs decide not to. And Grass Poison is a pretty dang good typing. You were able to spam Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, and it has like Earth Power, or it has Weather Ball to very much so sweep anything that it runs into. And as for Lilligant, this is a great Terra Blast abuser. With Terra Blast Fire, this mon can spam 80 base power stab fire moves in the Sun off of Chlorophyll, which is very, very, very strong. And it also gets very good moves in close combat and Leaf Blade, or if you really want to like accentuate the power in Sun, Solar Blade, which I like doing more. It is very strong. Also, if you're running Terra Blast on a mon, quick advice, it will make you do like Hasty or Naive or one of those two natures. But if you're running a physical attacker, always change it to Jolly, because Terra Blast technically counts as a special move before you Terrasilize. So it will be like, oh, well, you're using a special move, so you don't want your special attack dropped, you instead want your defense lowered. No. Because when you Terrasilize it, it will become a physical move, which means that you need that special attack boost or that defense drop. It's going to be very bad for you. You know? But yeah, these are the two premier Sun Chlorophyll Sweepers. And I really like using them because grass types can switch into the water type moves that the fire types are really scared of. And they also have very strong power, even like outside of like using their boosted moves. Like, a Solar Blade and a Close Combat are always going to be scary. Sludge Bomb can spread poison. Giga Drain is going to heal you up. And no mon really wants to switch into Earth Power, right? So, both of these mons have very, like, threatening even without boosts, right? And you can obviously run Modest and Adamant if you don't want to, like, maximize your speed stat. I like doing it that way. I outspeed, like, say, like a Sneasler. That's not like running Adamant with my Lilligant. I like running Jolly specifically for that. You don't have to, though. You can obviously run Adamant if you want that boost in power. So now that I've went over the key components that you need in a Sunsetter, a Magic Bounce user, and a Chlorophyll mon, I'm going to be going over the meat of the Sun teams, and that is the Fire-type attacker. That is what Sun essentially is. It's Fire-type spamming moves like Flamethrower and Eruption and like Weather Ball and all of that wonderful stuff to absolutely like nuke even like Water types. It will deal like 50% too, and you will be able to 2-hit KO them. And that's the real meat of Sun, is having that much power in a weather that boosts the power. Now I'm gonna be going over 3 or 4 like of the Sun Sweepers, the Fire type Sun Sweepers that I think are the absolute best. And the first one I want to go over is Heatran. With slapping a Choice Scarf on this means that it will, even though it doesn't outspeed Dragapult, it will still outspeed a lot of mons. Like, say, Zamazenta, it will outspeed. And with a 130 base special attack and firing Stab Eruption, This mon is an absolute threat. If you can sustain that 150 base power eruption by either switching this in safely or preventing rocks from getting up or getting like a free switch after a sack, this mon will either do 50% to a water type or get a KO in the sun. And it also has some good moves. It has like Earth Power. It has Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse. You can run Flamethrower. That way, if you get low on HP, you still have a good move to abuse in the sun. Flash Cannon as a secondary stab. You can run like Power Gem if you want. Scorching Sands if you want to like spread more burns and stuff. I personally like running Flash Cannon specifically for like fairy types, but obviously you can run like any of this extensive special move pool. That's what but Heatran, its biggest problem is that even like if it gets its choice scarf knocked off, it's kind of crippled for the rest of the game because yeah, it's still going to fire off very strong attacks off of 130 base speed. I mean special attack. Hold on. Sorry, but it's still going to fire off very strong stab fire moves off a 130 base special attack, but its fire steel typing means it's very weak to ground, fighting, and water, obviously, which are very common types. So you do have to be a little bit careful about switching this in correctly. And it has good natural bulk without investment, but still, it will be KO'd by a lot of things without the bulk investment that most Heatran do run. Next up, I want to be going over Charizard. Now, I'm going to not go over the Megas, because obviously for playing OU in Generation 9 and not playing National decks, you don't have them. Just know that Megazard Y is a very good Sun Abuser, as well as Megazard X is. So I do recommend using those, but I also don't like using the Mega slot on them. But you have Solar Power Charizard. This mon, I used to use a lot. I used this on my team for